Hey folks, welcome back to another Dice Tower preview. I'm Mark, and today we're taking a look at DragonStrike, which is a self-published title. It's for 2 to 4 players, ages 8 and up, and games generally run about 45 to 60 minutes. DragonStrike is a fast and furious and deviously cunning board game that will let you jump on your favorite type of dragon and take to the skies. Secretly choose your maneuvers to outsmart your opponents and breathe fire or poison, lightning, or frost on them. Then there are daring missions to complete as you try to outwit your opponents. Based on the D&D lore, you'll be able to play individual games or follow the development of your dragon wing, gaining dragon traits and rider skills. So pick your side and fight to free or cage the dragon queen Tiamat. Grab your dragon and let's take to the skies. So yes, this is a wartime strategy type game, but with dragons. Super cool, a theme I absolutely love, as well as them flying and engaging in battle using their breath weapons, things like that, as well as engaging in missions. In this particular mission, there's a caravan trying to escape off the mat, and you're fighting against other dragons in order to grab that caravan and make it off the side of the map you're from. So it's some multifaceted aspects here for sure, but you are fighting for supremacy. So let's start with dragons. There are several different types to pick from, as you would expect in the D&D type world. So you have cards that are going to represent the dragons, and you'll see the different traits and things they have, like their potence, their flight capability. You're going to see some rider skills, their health, as well as dragon traits. You have all kinds of different ones based on the dragon type. But on the other side, more importantly, you see how their breath weapons work, as well as any hazards they can put into play. All kinds of things can happen here with these dragons. You could have poison, ice bombs, fireballs, all kinds of different aspects of what they are capable of. A big part of what you're doing in this game is maneuvering your dragon, and there's so many different maneuvers to choose from. Some can be kind of dangerous. You'll have stress tests that you will have to roll dice to determine if you end up with fatigue or even damage because you went too fast or too hard on this particular maneuver. But you can also slow down to regain some fatigue, which is going to make you more battle ready, because the more fatigue, the less dice you have to work with. And you have so many different types of maneuvers. You might be lining up to engage with the dragon, or you might be slowing down to 0 in order to pick up the caravan. Lots of different directions to go with these different maneuvers. And in the full game, you're going to have a deck of cards to choose from. You'll pick one in secret, put it on your player board, and then flip simultaneously. But here, for the prototype, I don't have the cards, just the reference guides, but these reference guides are so well done, showing you all the different possibilities, what you might do and how you might maneuver your dragon. But on the other side, you're going to see some handy reference as well around different breath weapons, as well as your dodge and attack, even melee attack, where dragons end up on the same hex and then start to go at it lance to lance. So as a dragon rider, you will have a control board for your dragon. Several things of note here. First, at the top, we have actions. You only get one action per round, basically, so you can use that to attack or maybe dodge. Maybe you'll just take damage, so then you can attack the dragon. All kinds of decisions to be made around what actions you use for sure. But below that, we have our fatigue level. Based on your fatigue level, it will also dictate how many dice you can use and various things, but you'll see that there are several modifiers here based on that level. Then across the top on the other side is where your speed is. You're going to start at a level 3, but you'll be tracking this from round to round, knowing what last you took in the previous round. So there's a difficulty modifier below that, where based on the maneuver you're trying to pull off will dictate where you'll end up with maybe fatigue or even recovering fatigue, and what speed you'll end up with at the end of that round. So you're tracking that for every particular round that you're going through, and in general you're going to be playing 10 rounds to defeat the dragons or pull off whatever the scenario calls for. And in the middle of your board is where you'll be placing your cards, and above that is where you'll be tracking your health. Now in most cases, at least with these dragons, you're going to have 4 health, and dragons don't really die per se, but they're going to be out of the battle when you take them down. Another interesting concept in this game is known as the edge. So you'll pick one side or the other to be the edge, and it's really known as the sharp side and the blunt side. And you can use the hourglass, which we'll get to, as the marker for which side is which. Now, through the course of play, as you take damage and damage tests, then that can dictate when this moves to the other side of the table, and your opponent ends up having the edge or the sharp side of the board, which dictates a lot of things in battle and who gets to strike first and so forth. So that is a key component of what you're doing. You're trying to gain the sharp side because you want to go first in most cases. Each round of the game is divided into 5 phases. You have the planning phase, you have the flight phase, the situation phase, the attack phase, and then finally the end phase. So with the planning phase, the side of the board that has the sharp side will take the hourglass to turn over. You have 4 minutes to execute this. So you're looking through your cards, picking the right maneuver for your dragon, and then placing it face down on your player board. And if you run out of time before you do this, then you're just going to perform a default maneuver of moving straight at your current speed. And here we move to the flight phase of the game, where you'll turn your cards over, and based on whoever has the sharp side of the board will determine who goes first here and maneuvers their dragon and puts them into place based on those cards, following the outline, how you move along the different hexes and their position at the end. So the thing here is that maneuvers have a base difficulty specified on the card, which can be black, red, or yellow, or green. When executing these maneuvers, you must compare the speed of the maneuver against your current speed to find the maneuver's difficulty and then apply the effects. So if you move into the red or black on the difficulty level, you will be rolling dice against a stress check. So 2 successes, no penalties, 1 success equals 1 fatigue, and 0 successes will end up in 1 fatigue and 1 wound. So you need to be careful about these maneuvers because you will have to end up potentially doing these stress checks. Now, stress checks for this are against flight, and most of the dragons here again have a level 4 flight. So you're going to be rolling the dice hoping to get 4 or higher to determine if you are successful. Then we move into the situation phase, and from here you're going to check maybe your dragons are stunned or dazed, you got to deal with that, as well as hazards. Now remember, the ice dragon had the ice bomb, you could potentially have a fireball that's moved across the map, you could have poisonous gas that you interacted with. All of these are going to require a damage check if you've moved into them. So there's a chart again for the damage check and how you deal with that, but these are all the things you're going to be dealing with in the situation phase. And then we move on to the attack phase. So if you're on the sharp side of the table, you're going to be attacking first. And what that means is it leaves your opponent in a sticky situation, because as you attack, they will have to decide to either dodge or just take the damage, potential damage, because you still have to roll to see how many successes. But they have to make that tough choice if they want to use their action to dodge or save it to attack you when it's their turn. So when you attack, you have 2 options. You're going to basically use your breath weapon, and all the dragons have very different types of breath weapons. Some end in clouds that could potentially hit multiple dragons. Some are straight lines that you have to be lined up just perfectly. So they are all going to have different info and different modifiers around them. So you got to keep that in mind, but you also have hazards you can drop. Maybe there's no one around for you to hit, so it does pay off to maybe drop a poisonous cloud or that ice bomb, whatever it might be, the type of dragon. So you can do that as an action too. But again, if you spend your action in dropping a hazard, that will also mean you won't be able to dodge when your opponent finally attacks. And how does damage work? Well, you have the chart you're going to be rolling against. And based on the breath weapon you're using, we'll show you how many dice you're going to be rolling based on where it is in the hexes and so forth. But you're rolling against the dragon's potence, the red icon on their card. And in most cases here, they all have 4, and you're going to be rolling for 4s or higher in order to hit. If you hit, you do damage. But if you don't hit, you're still going to cause that dragon fatigue. So it's definitely advantageous to attack, obviously, when you have dragons in range. But if you're dodging an attack, you're going to be rolling 3d6. You're rolling 3 dice against your flight ability. Here it's a 4, unless you have fatigue, which will lower that. So you got to keep that in mind, most modifiers and so forth. But you're rolling the dice, and if you have 2 successes, you avoid damage, but you take 1 fatigue. But if you have only 1 success, you'll take 1 less damage. And obviously, if you have no successes, you take all the damage. And of course, there could potentially be all kinds of different modifiers based on your fatigue, or if you're like moving 0 speed, that will affect what you're doing for a dodge, all kinds of different things to take into account when you're attacking your breath weapons and so forth. So you have to bring those in when you're rolling the dice and doing all your checks for sure. And if you happen to be on the same hex as an opponent, then you engage in melee combat and you get to employ lots of things with the rider's skills, which is a lot of fun as well. So battling back and forth in this game is definitely a highlight. I love dice chucking in general in games, and this definitely has it. And then the end phase is just a cleanup. So you reset your actions, you'll take the modified difficulty and move it up to whatever your current speed is, for this next round, returning cards back to your hand, and just basically getting ready for the next round of the game. And if you're playing this scenario with this where this caravan is traveling, it will move one space up and getting ever closer to escaping, but you hope as a dragon to go pick it up. And what's really fun about that caravan is that if you're in mid-air with the caravan and you get attacked and you are annihilated or removed from the board, then the caravan is falling and you only have like 2 turns to gather it before it hits the ground and is destroyed. So I really like that aspect. It adds a nice thematic flavor to the game for sure, as you feel like you're actually using and flying on the back of these dragons. Alright folks, just a reminder once again, this has been a Dice Tower paid preview, and everything you've seen has been in prototype form, so keep a close eye on the campaign for any changes that still may occur. Now with that said, what I really liked about this game is that it was so easy to engage with. It might seem like there's a lot of checks at first, but after you go through a round or two, it just all becomes very natural and everybody's just chucking dice and trying to see what happens and maneuvering their dragons in the right place at the right time and using all those different types of damage effects, breath weapons, and just really there's a lot of mayhem to be had for sure as you're battling back and forth. And I like the thematic nature of this, and these miniatures are amazing. And the fact that you've got the D&D type dragons, so very cool. But folks, ultimately, if this looks like something of interest to you, I'm sure they'd appreciate your support. So I think that's it for me, and until next time, we'll see you at the table.